There is a tape, recorded in the Oval Office, February 14th, 1972. The president is talking about the man who runs the Federal Reserve, and he is angry. The chair will not cut interest rates fast enough. The election is 9 months away. The president needs the economy to run hot. So he says it on tape, war is going to be declared if the chair does not come around. You can listen to that recording right now. It has been public for decades. The chair he was talking about, a respected economist, a personal friend, an inflation hawk by every credential he had, eventually came around. Rates got cut, the economy ran hot. The president won re-election in a 49-state landslide. Then everyone in America paid for it for the next 13 years. I'm telling you this because in 9 days, May 15th, 2026, the United States gets a new Federal Reserve chair. His name is Kevin Warsh. He was confirmed in committee on a 13-11 vote. That was the first fully partisan committee vote on a Fed chair in the history of the institution. That alone is a story, but it is not the story. The story is that the conditions around his appointment look almost identical to 1971. Same political pressure. Same demand for cheap money, same inflation problem nobody has fully fixed, and almost nobody's saying that out loud. Arthur Burns did not come to the Federal Reserve as a political lackey. He arrived with a reputation for rigor. His 1969 book warned plainly, excessive growth of the monetary base, if unchecked, will engender inflationary expectations. That line appears in every textbook now. Back then, it was a warning to presidents as much as to markets. Burns was an academic, a scholar of cycles, a lifelong Republican. He was also Richard Nixon's friend. That made what happened next more personal and more dangerous. February 14th, 1972, the Oval Office. A tape begins with Nixon's voice sharp and impatient. He tells Burns that the economy is moving slower than we'd like for a re-election year. Burns pushes back, citing the latest CPI data, a 5.1% annual rise. He says he is worried about inflation. Nixon cuts him off. Nixon says inflation is a political, not an economic issue, and the voters will not notice a half-point move. The conversation turns. Nixon floats a rumor about a salary increase for senior officials if the Fed plays ball. He offers to hold back wage price control proposals to keep the campaign optics clean. And then the threat arrives. He says, if you need any help from the Justice Department, say a friendly review of a pending case, let me know. Burns pauses. His answer is quiet. He says he will consider what was said, he will look at the policy staff's recommendations and get back to him. Burns's diary records the moment. He writes of insane shouting and his reluctant acquiescence. The pressure was not subtle. It was direct, documented, and personal. Nixon wanted lower rates, he wanted growth on paper before voters went to the polls. He wanted the Fed to serve the White House, not the public. Burns had warned about this exact danger. Now he was living it. The doctrine of central bank independence, the firewall against inflation, was being tested in real time. The numbers were not abstract. In 1971, M1 growth jumped to 12%. The federal funds rate, once steady at 5.5%, began to slide. Burns, the inflation hawk, was cornered by the man who appointed him. This is not a story about bad intentions, it is about structure. You do not need a villain to repeat 1971. You just need a president with an election calendar, a Fed chair with a public profile, and a system where private pressure can override public duty. Burns's credentials did not save the institution. They gave cover for capitulation. The cost measured in years of runaway inflation, lost jobs, and shattered credibility would come later. But in that room on that tape, the pattern was set. August 15th, 1971. The president signs the Economic Stabilization Act. 90 days. No wage hikes, no price hikes, a freeze so sudden the headlines call it a shock. But the real shock is underground, buried in the numbers. M1, the basic money supply, surges past 7.5% annual growth by the first half of 1972. The Federal Reserve's H6 series records the jump. This is not a gentle nudge, it is a flood. The mechanics are clinical. The wage price freeze locks in pay and sticker prices, but it does nothing to stop the flow of dollars. With the gold window closed, the Fed faces almost no external constraint. The Treasury issues new debt, and the Fed buys. Commercial banks expand lending. Deposits multiply. The monetary base swells. The controls are supposed to buy time for the system to adjust. Instead, they become a lid on a boiling pot. Every month, the Federal Reserve's printouts show the same pattern. M1 expansion, running hot, exceeded 12% annualized in late 1971, before settling just below 8% in the first half of 1972. This is more than double the average pace of the previous decade. The federal funds rate, meanwhile, drifts lower, from 5.5% before the freeze to under 5% by the time the wage controls expire. The policy staff's internal memos warn of excess liquidity, but the public message is different. The controls will hold the line, they say. Inflation is contained, the numbers say otherwise. The logic behind the controls is simple on paper. If wages and prices cannot rise, then more money will not immediately show up at the grocery store or the gas pump. But the pressure builds. Contracts are rewritten, inventories run down. Businesses wait for the freeze to end, then raise prices all at once. Data from the first quarters of 1972 show a spike in bank reserves and a sharp uptick in consumer credit. The money is moving. The effect is delayed, not diffused. This is the structural lever at work. The president's demand for growth, the Fed's quiet accommodation, and the legal power of the wage price freeze combine to supercharge the supply of money. The official narrative says the controls are a shield. In practice, they are a trigger. The inflation consequences are not immediate, but the fuse is burning. By the end of 1972, the numbers leave no doubt. The system has been primed for a surge that will not be contained by the expiration of a 90-day order. The cost, measured in years, is already set in motion. November 7, 1972, Richard Nixon wins re-election by one of the largest margins in American history. 49 states, over 47 million votes. The White House calls it a mandate. Gross domestic product growth for the year hits 7.7%, wartime levels in peacetime. Unemployment drops below 5.5%. The controls have done their job, or so it seems. Wages and prices are still frozen. The public feels a lull, not a storm. The stock market rises, the campaign points to the numbers. Inflation is contained, growth is back, the nation is stable. But the policy lid is temporary by law. The Economic Stabilization Act, signed in August 1971, comes with an expiration date. On January 1, 1973, the wage and price controls will lift. The machinery behind the scenes knows this is coming. Businesses delay raises, stockpile inventory, rewrite contracts to take effect the moment the freeze ends. The Federal Reserve's own minutes in late 1972 note the pent-up price adjustments waiting for the new year. But for now, none of that is visible. The surface is calm. Nixon's team claims victory. The campaign's gamble, pressure the Federal Reserve, flood the system, clamp down prices, has paid off in the short run. The numbers look perfect. The president is untouchable. Arthur Burns, the academic hawk, is still in his post. The controls are still in place. The public is still buying the story. But the law is ticking. The lid cannot hold forever. The celebration is real, but it is borrowed time. The true cost is sealed inside the system, waiting for the controls to expire. January 1st is coming. The numbers will not stay quiet. October 17th, 1973. OPEC ministers meet in Kuwait City and announce an immediate embargo on oil deliveries to the United States. Within days, tankers are stranded, gas lines snake for blocks, and the price of crude more than doubles. The International Energy Agency records a 70% spike in oil prices by December. The shock is not just at the pump, it runs straight through the economy's bloodstream. The Consumer Price Index, already climbing, surges to 12.3% by 1974. The Bureau of Labor Statistics charts the rise month by month: food, transportation, heating, every basic cost accelerating at once. But the fuse for this explosion was already lit. The money supply had been growing fast for 2 years. Wage and price controls had delayed the visible impact, but not the underlying pressure. When the embargo hits, there is nothing left to absorb the blow. Dollars chase fewer goods. Contracts are renegotiated overnight. Businesses that waited out the freeze now scramble to recoup losses, passing costs to consumers with no restraint. The Federal Reserve's own internal charts show reserves ballooning, liquidity flooding the system, but with no anchor to hold expectations down. OPEC's move is a catalyst, not a cause. The real vulnerability lies in the policy choices made before the embargo, the expansion of credit, the deliberate suppression of rates, the belief that controls could hold back market forces. When the external shock arrives, inflation is not just imported, it is amplified. The numbers are not abstract. By the end of 1974, American families face the highest inflation in a generation. The illusion of stability collapses. The system, primed for growth at any cost, delivers a bill that cannot be paid with campaign slogans or technocratic language. The era of runaway inflation has begun, and the cure will be far more painful than the trigger. The post-election calm did not last. As wage and price controls expired in January 1973, the numbers reversed course. Gross domestic product, after surging 7.7% in 1972, slowed sharply to just 1.6% by 1973. The illusion of costless growth was shattered. Inflation, once hidden by legal caps, broke through the surface. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracked the climb. Consumer prices were up 12.3% by 1974, the fastest since the Second World War. Families watched paychecks lose value in real time. The Federal Reserve, boxed in by its own previous accommodation, found itself with only one lever left, and that was pain. Paul Volcker took the chair in August 1979. He did not arrive with a promise of relief. He arrived with a mandate to break inflation, whatever the cost. The federal funds rate, which had hovered near 5% under Burns, leapt to 15.61% by 1980. Mortgage rates followed, peaking above 18%. The economy contracted, unemployment climbed past 10%. Factories closed, farms failed. The jobless rate stayed above 10% for 10 straight months. The social cost was not theoretical. It was measured in lost homes, shuttered plants, and entire communities left behind. This was the bill for the easy money of 1971 and 1972. The numbers are not just statistics, they are the record of a society forced to pay for a political bargain struck years earlier. Volcker's cure worked, but it left scars. The United States did not see inflation return to 2% until the mid-1980s. 13 years were lost to a single moment of capitulation. The lesson is not buried in the past, it stands as a warning. When independence is traded for convenience, the price is not paid by presidents or chairs, it is paid by everyone else. The campaign for cheaper money does not unfold behind closed doors. It blasts through social media feeds, cable news scrolls, and press conferences. This time, the pressure is not whispered in the Oval Office, it's tagged, posted, and retweeted for millions to see. On March 15, 2023, Donald Trump writes, "The Fed must bring rates down to 1%. The American people can't afford higher borrowing costs. The message is not subtle. It is a command, delivered in public, aimed squarely at Jerome Powell's desk. Over the next year, the volume only rises. On June 28th, I'm calling on the Fed to lock in a 1% rate. Anything higher hurts jobs and families. On October 9th, our economy is strong. It's time the Fed does its part. 1% is the right target. Every post is a shot across the bow. On January 12, 2024, the Fed's duty is to keep rates at 1% until inflation is truly under control. On February 23rd, a retweet amplifies a congressional ally calling for a 1% ceiling for the foreseeable future. On May 7, the video shows the former president promising, "I will keep pressing the Fed for a 1% ceiling. That's what American families deserve." This is not a private negotiation, it's a campaign waged in the open, designed to make resistance look like betrayal. The demand is clear, 1%. Not 3, not 2, 1. The number is repeated until it becomes a litmus test. Any deviation is framed as sabotage against workers, against growth, against America itself. The effect on Jerome Powell is immediate. Every public appearance is shadowed by questions about political interference. Every press release is dissected for signs of capitulation. The Fed's official statements cling to technocratic language, but the outside noise is deafening. Powell defends the central bank's independence, but the ground is shifting. Allies in Congress begin to echo the president's rhetoric. Conservative media outlets run segments accusing the Fed of choking the recovery and ignoring the will of the people. The pressure is not just rhetorical, it is strategic. Each post is timed to coincide with key economic releases, FOMC meetings, or signs of market weakness. The message is always the same. The Fed is out of touch and the solution is simple. Cut rates to 1% now. The campaign creates a new reality. The debate is no longer about the risks of premature easing or the lessons of the 1970s. It is about loyalty. Are you for growth or are you against it? The stakes are not abstract. The last time a president demanded easy money before an election, the cost was measured in double-digit inflation and a lost decade for American workers. The playbook has changed, but the goal is the same. Override the firewall, force the Fed's hand, and claim victory before the bill comes due. The difference now is that the pressure is public, relentless, and broadcast in real time. The old threats were made in private. Today, the whole country is meant to hear them. The Department of Justice opened its investigation in January 2025. The charge was alleged irregularities in a $45 million renovation of the Federal Reserve's headquarters. The press release landed on Powell's desk the morning before a scheduled FOMC meeting. The language was careful, no evidence of criminal conduct at this time, but the message was unmistakable. The probe would remain open, casting a shadow over every public appearance, every policy decision, every headline about the Fed's independence. The investigation did not end quickly. For 15 months, Powell operated under legal scrutiny. Subpoenas went out to senior staff. Congressional hearings demanded explanations. Conservative media ran stories questioning the Fed's motives and the chair's integrity. The timing was not random. Each key moment in the investigation matched up with the White House's public demands for easier money, a 1% policy rate, justified by the claim that the American worker was being crushed by high borrowing costs. In the Senate, the leverage became explicit. Senator Tom Tillis, a senior Republican on the Banking Committee, announced in March 2026 that he would withhold his vote on any Federal Reserve nominee, while the DOJ probe remained open. His statement was short, no confirmation until these questions are resolved. The effect was immediate. The committee's schedule froze. No hearings, no votes, no movement on the president's nominee. The hold gave the administration a procedural weapon, one that did not require a single new law, only a willingness to use the rules already on the books. Behind closed doors, Powell's allies scrambled to defend the institution. The Board of Governors issued a rare public statement, affirming their confidence in the chair. Economists warned that prolonged uncertainty could destabilize markets. But the legal process ground on. By April 2026, the DOJ announced it had found no evidence of wrongdoing and closed the case. Within days, Senator Tillis lifted his hold. The Banking Committee moved to consider Kevin Warsh's nomination. The sequence was too precise to ignore. A legal threat is not just a headline, it is a tool. The investigation's timing, the Senate's procedural freeze, the sudden clearance, and the immediate confirmation hearing, that is not a coincidence. That is a key fitting a lock. The structure does the work, even if no one says the quiet part aloud. Warsh's hearing was scheduled for the following month. The debate would center on the future of monetary policy, but the lesson was already clear. Law and procedure can be as powerful as any private threat. When the rules are used as weapons, central bank independence becomes a matter of perception, a norm that can be bent, delayed, or quietly erased. June 2025. The Senate Banking Committee gathers for a vote that will define the next phase of American monetary policy. The room is tense. The count is close, 13 in favor and 11 against. No bipartisan cover, no fig leaf of consensus. This is the first time in the institution's history that a Federal Reserve chair advances on a strictly partisan roll call. The names are recorded in the congressional record. The margin is razor thin but decisive. Kevin Warsh is through to the full Senate. Warsh's resume is not in question. He served on the Federal Reserve Board from 2006 to 2011, appointed in the wake of the financial crisis, and was known then as a hawk, skeptical of large-scale asset purchases and wary of balance sheet expansion. He spent years as a governor, then stepped away into the world of private finance and policy commentary. His speeches from that era warn against the risks of inflation and the dangers of overreach. But now Warsh returns under a different banner. The old reputation is a shield, not a guarantee. The confirmation hearing is clinical, but the breach is plain. Past nominees for Fed chair have cleared the committee with broad support, including Volcker, Greenspan, Bernanke, Yellen, Powell. The vote for Warsh is a warning shot. The firewall of tradition has cracked. Senators who once prized the appearance of central bank independence now vote the party line. The justification is procedural, but the effect is unmistakable. The route to the chairmanship is no longer guarded by bipartisan custom. It is open to whoever commands the majority. The official record frames Warsh as a technocrat. The hearing transcript lists his degrees, his years on the board, his service as a White House economic advisor during the Bush administration. But beneath the biography, the context is different. The prior months have seen public campaigns to force interest rates down, a high-profile DOJ investigation that vanished as soon as the nomination advanced, and a committee process frozen until the legal cloud lifted. That is not coincidence. That is a key fitting a lock. The confirmation is not just about Warsh, it is about the structure that allowed this route to the chair. Public pressure, legal leverage, a Senate willing to abandon precedent. The vote count, 13 to 11, will be cited in future histories as the moment the old norms failed to hold. The biography provides cover, the process provides the path, the policy doctrine comes next. Kevin Warsh enters the confirmation hearing with a thick binder and a single message. The era of forward guidance is over. The transcript records his words. The world has changed, the Fed must change with it. Senators press him on the details. Warsh points to his proprietary artificial intelligence model, trained on millions of data points, capable, he claims, of predicting inflation with a mean absolute error of 0.3%. The model, he says, can detect turning points in real time. No more waiting for lagging indicators, no more reliance on public projections. The committee listens as Warsh outlines his plan. First, forward guidance is gone. No more advance hints about the path of rates. Second, the dot plot is retired. The chart that once let markets see the internal debate is now an unnecessary distraction. Third, post-meeting press conferences are eliminated. The chair will speak through the official statement alone. The rationale is clinical. Too much transparency, he argues, creates noise, not clarity. It invites political gamesmanship, leaks, and market overreaction. The new regime will rely on real-time data analytics and dynamic alerts delivered through algorithmic channels, not human briefings. The hearing record shows few questions about the risks. Only Senator Warren raises a hand. She asks, "Isn't this just making the Fed more opaque?" Warsh answers, "No, Senator. It is making it more credible. The world moves too fast for static guidance. The model will speak for itself." The intellectual cover is tight. Warsh's resume as a former Fed governor, White House advisor, and Wall Street veteran gives him the air of a technocrat above politics. But the timing is impossible to ignore. The push to end transparency tools comes after months of public pressure for rate cuts, after a Department of Justice investigation that vanished on cue, after a confirmation process frozen and then unlocked at the precise moment the administration needed movement. The structure is familiar: a respected expert, a new doctrine, and a set of reforms that concentrate power at the top. The stakes are not hidden in the language. Removing forward guidance, the dot plot, and post-meeting press conferences strips away the public's window into the Fed's thinking. It turns policy into a black box. The model's outputs become the only signal. Accountability shifts from a board of governors to a single algorithm and the person who controls it. The old norms, debate, transparency, consensus are swept aside in the name of efficiency. Warsh's testimony is not a blueprint for disaster, but it is a regime change. The intellectual rationale is polished, the numbers are precise, the language is modern, yet the effect is the same as it was in 1971. The tools designed to defend independence are set aside, replaced by a promise that this time the experts have it under control. The next numbers will decide whether that promise holds. March 2026. The Bureau of Labor Statistics releases the latest Consumer Price Index. The headline number lands at 3.3% year over year, higher than any forecast from the new model. The monthly jump is even sharper, 0.9% in a single month, the largest since the early pandemic. Gasoline is up 20% since January. The official narrative of a smooth disinflation is suddenly at odds with reality. Inside the Federal Reserve, the minutes from the most recent FOMC meeting record 3 dissents, an unusual fracture. The statement is cautious, but the footnotes tell the real story. 2 governors want stronger language about inflation risks. One objects to the removal of forward guidance, warning that the new black box regime leaves the public in the dark. The dissenters are not named in the official release, but their votes break a pattern of consensus that has held for years. Outside the boardroom, markets react instantly. Bond yields surge, the dollar slips. Reporters press for a response, but the new communications policy means there is no press conference, no dot plot, no hint of the internal debate. The only signal is the post-meeting statement and the data, which now speak louder than any model. The gasoline spike is not a statistical blip. OPEC's production cut, announced late last year, has worked its way through the supply chain. The cost of filling a tank rises week after week. Trucking companies pass on higher fuel costs. Grocery prices edge up. The CPI's energy component is red, but the core index is climbing too. The mechanics are familiar to anyone who remembers the 1970s. An external shock hits an economy still running hot from years of easy money. Powell remains on the board, his term as governor extending through 2028. His presence is a reminder that the institution's memory is not easily erased. But the rules have changed. The chair sets the tone, the model sets the pace, and the old guard is outnumbered. The friction is not hidden. It is written into the minutes, stamped onto the data, and reflected in the price of a gallon of gas. The public message insists that the model will adapt, that the spike is temporary, that the regime change is working. But the numbers are not cooperating. The structure that once promised stability now delivers uncertainty. The debate over independence is no longer academic. It is measured in the cost of living, in dissenting votes, in the gap between model and reality. The story is not over, but the edge is sharp. The data are pushing back. Today, the Federal Reserve faces pressure that echoes 1972, publicly, aggressively, and on the eve of an election. In 1971, it took just one chair folding to political demands to unleash 13 years of inflation and pain. Now, the same structural fault lines are exposed. Central bank independence isn't protected by law. It's protected by what we tolerate. You don't need a villain to repeat history. You just need the door left unlocked.